I am ready with the video.
Let's go.
Welcome to our October edition of ILEETA Live. Thank you all for joining us on this warm, cool night wherever you are. It's kind of coolish here. I don't know what it's like in Wisconsin. I'm guessing Texas. It's
81. It's beautiful.
But yeah, it's a beautiful night here in Colorado, and we're happy to have our wonderful guest Justin Witt on. But before we bring him on, we wanted to jump into some deadlines, news, and other ILEETA going on things. What is it? 16 days, Joe? 16 more days until the ILEETA proposals are due?
Yeah, I think that's the math on it. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I was horrible at math in school, but yeah, I think 16 days. Get those in. So if you want to get your ILEETA proposal in and teach next year at the ILEETA 2026 conference, it's time to bring that in. So what are we seeing that are coming in proposals wise, Joe?
Yeah, so we are currently well ahead of previous years on proposals. I'm talking 11 more than our best year, and about significantly more than that historically. So very excited about the number, but also the quality and diversity. And I think we'll spend more time talking about that during the session tonight. But the short version is there's a lot on the technology front. Wellness is super dense, and it's become aware to our instructor proposals that we have 3 ranges available to us this year. So Good. Firearms proposals are starting to roll in. We're looking at some driving stuff. We got a driving track available, so a PIT class. These are all, starting to come in. We've still got to review proposals and stuff, which that task is beginning kind of as we speak, but a lot of great diversity, a lot of great proposals.
Awesome. If you, everybody out there in ILEETA Live land, have anything that specific you're looking for that you want to attend in ILEETA, drop a line so we can post it up here, and maybe if it's not being proposed yet, somebody will get that proposal in.
Yeah, absolutely. Put that in the chat.
Oh, go ahead. Also, October 31st, it's the early bird registration deadline. And can you talk a little bit about that, Joe? How much we're charging folks with that?
Yeah, so this year we're doing an early bird registration for $399 as opposed to the $440 for normal registration. And so, yes, you save $41 for taking advantage of that. But it also gives you the opportunity to get in, get your room reserved, and all that kind of stuff. So that's had a huge impact on registrations. And one of the things, Jenny Merlin and I were looking at it a few days ago, what I kind of expected to see was that it was all of the people who always register early, they were just registering early to take advantage of it. And while that's kind of true, we're seeing some of that. The number of first year attendees is actually kind of cool to watch. And we're at about 10% of that number is folks who are registering for the first time. And I really hope that trend continues.
Is one of the things that's improving those numbers, or at least that the trend of those numbers, is that could this be the new program where you can do group registrations or group memberships for an agency? You think that may be trending it that direction?
So far, yes, because I've seen 2 agencies that, because you get that deal no matter what, but I think the social proof of folks attending or signing up for it is having an impact on that. So yeah, this year we're also doing a send 5 or more, and everybody goes for $399. And so that is a tremendous deal. And, I think I heard you say one time, essentially that's eventually getting 1 for free. By the time you do all the math on it, it's, a heck of a deal. And then, think about it, the advantage of having 5 people or more attend from your department. In fact, I think our guest tonight has had several people from his agency attend in the past and can definitely talk about that once we bring him on.
Now, Joe, I don't know if I'm reading this right, but October 31st is the deadline for proposals. And I think November 10th is the presenters going to be announced. That's a pretty tight window for you to.
Yeah, so that's a commitment we're holding ourselves to. The goal is they'll be notified by then. Yeah, so we'll have them selected. They'll be notified, but as they're getting notified, you know how that goes. People start putting it out on social media, and so my goal is I don't want there to be any delay. I want it to be I notify a presenter that they are accepted, and then as a team we get that schedule out as not schedule rather. Correct me there. That's not coming anytime soon. That thing's a bear. But we get the list out so that people can see right away. So yeah, the goal is, I mean, why not try to put ourselves to that standard? So fingers crossed, we're going to make it. I think it's a timeline we can make.
All right. Awesome. Easy date to remember. Marine Corps birthday presenters will be announced, hopefully.
Well, if you're going to hold yourself to a standard, that should be one, huh?
Hoorah, Semper Fi. So December 1st, the scholarship window closes. How do we go about applying for a scholarship?
Yeah, so on the website under the 2025 tab, there's a scholarship window there. So you go to that and go in and apply for the scholarship. Plus, in all of the announcements for the in the e-bulletin, you'll find them all in there as well. And so super easy to go in. Basically, it's a little bit of a financial need element to it, right? Like explain, why that part makes sense. But one of the bigger factors is, what are you going to do with this? What kind of impact are you going to have? Be sure to clarify that. That should be a big part of the proposal that you submit. And so we're looking forward to it. We had, I think, 4. I don't want to get this wrong. I'm pretty sure it was 4. Yeah, it was 4 scholarships last year. And so a big part of ILEETA's success is scholarship folks coming in and being a part of the organization.
And coming back and giving back. I mean, back to their agency is our focus with who they train and the information that they can share from the conference. But seeing scholarship people come back and give back to the other ILEETA members, I think is an amazing thing to see, and we've seen that several times over the years, and that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
And those will be announced, I believe, on December 31st. So New Year's Eve, look for your email notifications for those scholarships. And December 10th is the next deadline for the ILEETA journal, the last journal before the conference edition. So be sure to get the ILEETA articles submitted to any of the ILEETA editors. And
yeah, absolutely.
Here we go. 151 days until ILEETA 2026. Just around the corner. It's going to be here before you know it. So let's get the proposals in. Let's work on your scholarships. If you're going to submit a scholarship, work on that, and start working on your lesson plans and your presentation to start teaching at ILEETA 2026. We're all excited.
Yeah, so excited. It's going to be fun. This is the time of year, too, that it just kind of starts to build for a lot of us. So this is awesome.
Well, hey, I think we've hit all the news and updates, unless you guys have anything else.
Nothing specific right now from my perspective. Todd, anything from your perspective that?
No. I'm starting to look at kind of whittling down my list for Emerson Hour in 2026, and once we get some information on who's going to be there, the official invites will go out. So really excited to see what comes of it.
Who's on the short list?
I'm not telling you.
All right. All right. Well, hey, I think you're.
It's between me and my dog. And that's it.
Speaking of the Emerson Hour, I think our next guest is a previous Emerson Hour speaker, and I think it's time to bring on Justin.
What's going on, buddy?
Hey,
Welcome.
Welcome to ILEETA Live. We're honored to have you on here. We've got a lot to talk about tonight. But before we dive into some of our conversations, let's hear who Justin is. Tell the members and those in the audience who you are, for those that don't know who Justin is.
Yeah. One, I appreciate you guys having me. Justin Witt, I'm a sergeant in Louisville, Kentucky with Louisville Metro Police Department. I've been here since around 2009. Been a sergeant since 2020. Been in the training division for the last 8 years. That's aside from the police department. I've got 2 boys, a wife. They're growing. They're getting big, 7 and 9. I own a business on the side as well. So I have that, and then various other ventures. I just got back from Las Vegas from playing softball in the Police Softball World Series. So if anybody else was out there, that's a pretty cool time too. There was over 1,200 police officers out there kind of competing for a little bit of olden glory. So yeah, a lot.
You didn't pull a hammy or anything, right?
Man, I'm glad this year I did not. My birthday is actually tomorrow, and I told somebody tonight, I was like, man, I get older and older every year, or the competition gets younger. So sooner or later, I'll have to give that up. But no, it's good.
Haven't I heard somewhere that you're good at swinging a bat?
Yeah.
Man, I don't know. At one time.
That actually kind of leads me to a question. As working in the training division and being, a baseball, somebody that came up through the ranks in baseball, what are some things that you learned in that arena that you now put into play as a leader in your department?
Yeah, baseball is probably more than most other sports. It's a game of failure. You're not going to succeed. You go out and you look at basketball and football, some quarterbacks, if you don't have a high completion rate, you're probably not going to make it very far. Basketball, if you're not making 50-60% from the field, you're probably not going to make it very far. People in the Hall of Fame in baseball, they have a losing record. They're hitting 270, 280, 28% of the time they're successful. So you learn very early on to be able to handle adversity, to be able to handle failure, to be able to, persevere through that. And I think that translates to law enforcement. We're not always going to be successful, and what we're going to do isn't always going to be popular. We deal with a lot of adversity. We've seen that since 2020. Definitely the pendulum has started to shift back now, but we've kind of dealt with the adversity of law enforcement, and some cities are dealing with that now. And I think whenever you grow up in sports and you learn to kind of be in a team environment and you learn to pick each other up whenever they may not be having a good day, that translates to the academy. We expect these kids to fail in the academy. We expect that they're going to make decisions, and they're not always going to be the right decisions, and then we're going to be able to coach and mentor them. But if they get on themselves, if they quit, if they lay down, this isn't a profession you can do that in. And most of the time, it's the ones that came from sports and they learned that early on, they're able to transition earlier and help out some of their classmates.
Yeah.
So when you look at that from those, like you mentioned, that come up through sports and yourself having that sports background, and so kind of the coaching analogies fit well with you. What are some of the ways of transferring some of that you've seen effective to those that don't have that sports background, and what are some of the ways that works there?
Well, I think that, one of the things is as trainers, we have to be adaptive, right? We have to learn that everyone doesn't learn the same way. And, the good trainers out there, and you see a lot of these at ILEETA, they're able to touch people where they're at, right? If you have a sports person, that's very easy for me to translate. But really the challenge of being a good trainer is to grab that introverted person who probably didn't come up in sports, who may have been an only child, who didn't have that group setting, and then figure out how to pull that out of them. Policing's not really a job where you're going to be able to sit back, be introverted, not have conversations, not make decisions, right? So I think that early on, partnering them up and pairing them with someone in the academy that has those natural skills, right? And then building competence and confidence through, and you start to see people come out of their shell. You can't force it on them, right? I think with these trainers who have tried to make cookie cutter, I go back and I use another baseball analogy. If I'm a hitting coach and I try to get someone in the box, and I try to make them swing my swing every time, they probably won't be successful. Todd, you probably see this on the range a lot, right? There's all kinds of different shooting platforms, but really there's some principles that they have to adhere to, right? You may shoot, a ton of different ways, and as long as you adhere to those principles, then you're probably going to be successful. And policing isn't much different, right? As long as you adhere to some certain principles, then the rules can go out the door.
Yeah, no doubt.
100%.
And policing is definitely a team sport, right? And so that's one of those things where if you didn't come up that way, and I kind of see it a lot like baseball is a great analogy. Wrestling teams are another, right? Where there's a lot of individual excellence, but at the end of the day, it's still a team and it's still people working together to accomplish those goals. And people who haven't experienced that, I think you're absolutely right, kind of bringing them together and establishing that in folks as early as possible. Brian, were you going to say something?
Oh, no, you kind of stole a little bit of my thunder, but I was going to talk about a little bit mentoring. It sounds like you are pairing people up with somebody that's established and kind of along matches with that recruit. What are some of your strategies to match certain specific recruits with another officer in your agency? And do you reach out to people that aren't really formal mentors and saying, hey, I think this recruit would be a good fit with you, even though you're not a mentor? Is that something you guys do?
Yeah. So previously I was over top of our FTO program. And I think that's an important aspect of it, right? Is how do you select, and I know this is individualized to a large agency like Louisville, where we have hundreds of FTOs, right? I know if you're a smaller agency and you have 2 or 3 FTOs, that personalities might not always mesh well, right? We have the luxury that I am able to kind of understand who my FTOs are and how do I mesh personalities together. So I want to kind of give that caveat there. But also, I think that it's important that we kind of find people where they're at, right? The olden days of, hey, when you graduate the academy, everybody should be here, right? And they're all going to be at the same level and they're all going to progress at the same pace is a myth, right? People don't learn at the same pace. They don't, it doesn't click for everybody at the same time. And you have to have a little bit of flexibility and adaptability to your training, right? These rigid programs, and we've been there, right? Where it's like, hey, you have 4 weeks to be able to check these boxes. And if you don't do it, you're out of here, right? Well, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but like, it's hard to hire people, right? And you invest $60,000 into them in a police academy and you push them out. And in 3 weeks, you say, hey, listen, you got to hit this metric so you're out of here. That's tough, right? So we've kind of had to adapt in modern policing and training of like, okay, maybe we need to look internally at ourselves, right? And do some assessments on what our trainers are doing and then push out a different product that may hit people where they're at instead of us just expecting that they're going to kind of get there.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That, it used to be when I first became an FTO, I would hear other agencies brag about having a 40% washout rate or something like that. And I always looked at those agencies and I said, well, that's very ineffective and inefficient. That says more about you than it does about the people that you're hiring. Mm-hmm. And so I think you're absolutely right that not everybody's going to progress along that continuum in the same way, and that check the box training just it needs to go away, and it's good. It does my heart good to see that a lot of agencies have gotten rid of that. So.
And Justin, you've been a part of the FTO conversation for a while, so maybe some insight on a national level, but also from your own agency. As you looked at that internally, and you said, I heard you say, look at ourselves internally and ask what we're doing and what we can change. What were some of the things you've noticed, and maybe you can share from the conversation nationally?
Yeah. So I was bred in a PTO system. For those of you that don't know, problem-based, problem-oriented policing, very like rigid as far as there are certain weeks that you have to complete tasks. There are learning activity forms that you had to fill out, and you could cheat the system, right? Because basically in a PTO system, you pick a run. There's a form that's you fill out. It's the same questions every time. You have to do 4 of these in the process, and you talk about the run, and you really knew and could predict what the answers that the trainer was looking for, right? And as long as you kind of filled those bubbles in, you were probably going to progress in the process, and then you were going to make it to a final week. And as long as and one of the problems we had with it is it was by chance, right? Once you got to finals week, it was really the run that came across the radio. And if you didn't get any runs that come across the radio, then guess what? You passed. And I say if you didn't get any runs that maybe challenged you, you might only get in those 3 or 4 days, you might get a couple of report runs, a missing person, maybe a domestic, but everything's pretty easy to kind of figure out. You complete the proper forms and you're good to go. Whereas someone else on the other side of town, they might have been faced with 2 shootings, 2 foot chases, an assault, and something really confusing, right? And then they fail. And what we decided, and there's a lot of people out there now that are kind of doing this, right? Command Presence is one of them, Jason Devlin, NAFTO. There's a bunch of them, right? But they're kind of breaking off and they're coming up with their own version of FTO training, right? So you had the Reno and the San Jose models, and those are kind of antiquated and haven't been updated in a really long time. And then you have departments like ours that are saying, hey, we're just going to create our own thing. What's good for Louisville? What does it make sense? We're going to take a little of PTO, a little of FTO, plus a little creativity, and understanding that with technology now, we can review body camera. We can have them use simulators in VR. We can do a lot of things with them that we don't have to wait for the run to come out on the radio. I can use a simulator of VR and put you in that situation right now. I can show you body camera and put you in that situation right now to have to make a decision to see whether or not you know what your legal authority is and whether you're competent in that. Whereas, 15 years ago, it was just like, hey, I'll tell you a story and maybe we could talk about it in the car. Right. But now I can build competence by building capacity, by showing you things on body camera, VR, AR, what have you.
Awesome. Yep.
What kind of success, what kind of failures, what kind of challenges has we were talking about VR before we got on the air here. And I think that is something that we're going to be leveraging more and more into the future. What are your current challenges? How are you leveraging it? What are you seeing as far as the results utilizing that technology?
Yeah, a lot of it is resistance from trainers to build it into their learning packages, right? Really? Because we're so used to scenario-based training, and let's just cut to the chase. There's going to be no replacement, right, for scenario-based training. In a perfect world, if you had unlimited space, unlimited refunds, unlimited role players, all kinds of environments, right, then of course we would like to use simunitions all the time. We would like to use UTM, and we would like to put people through rapid scenarios, but that takes time. It takes time to reset. It takes a lot of role players, and it takes a lot of finances to be able to afford simunitions for a 1,000-person department. Whereas with a simulator, I can put you in 50 different environments today in 30 different scenarios with unlimited role players and really tailor it to your needs. Like, you think about it from, I could set up a scenario with 50 students with an intended outcome. And maybe there's 20 of them in that class that actually need whatever I'm going to give them. But we don't have the ability to adapt that scenario too much. Or I can put you in a simulator and I can know where everyone in the class is struggling. And with the click of a button in technology, I can make sure to tailor the training environment to exactly what that person needs. The resistance or the hiccups now, and there's people out here that are looking at this, right? But is the technology, it's good, but it's not as good as we want it to be, right? Yeah. Like, you know, you're talking to a simulator and it has branching options, and cops get frustrated, right? They're like, hey, I said, give me your ID, and all of a sudden you click a button and it says, show me your hands. And it's like, well, this doesn't make any sense, right? You know, so they get frustrated. Or even like some of the newer stuff with augmented reality and virtual reality, the AI has a learning software, right? Where, you know, the AI can respond to you in real time, and it learns what your dialect, your words, etc. Well, I don't know if you guys hear my accent, but AI doesn't do real well with me, right? It takes a little bit for it to understand what I'm saying. So that becomes frustrating too. But I think that we are close. I think that there are groups out there that are really close to nailing down AI and simulators and virtual training, where we're gonna be able to use it.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think we're seeing that on a lot of fronts. We've got a great sponsor coming on board this year who is for the conference that is, you know, leaps and bounds in that space, and working with some trainers already. And I think you hit the nail on the head there with the resistance to use it is partially based on the technology, partially based on trainer familiarity with it. And if you take those two problems and you combine them, you got one hell of a problem. But when you start to experiment with it, and you said something before we came on the air that I kind of want to revisit. If I don't remember the exact words essentially, but if you don't educate yourself on something, and if you can kind of elaborate on that, because I think it's incumbent upon trainers to lean into that discomfort, figure it out where it fits, and use it to the fullest extent possible as it evolves. But if you can kind of expand on what you were saying earlier about you got to get.
I think that as we as trainers, you know, it's a lifelong learning profession. And you have to be willing to educate yourself, or very quickly you become antiquated. You become the dinosaur, right? Mm-hmm. You're dealing with students. Like we used to say, whenever we were on the street and I was working narcotics, we used to say that we get older, but the suspect stays the same age, right? And that's tough, right? As you get older, you get more out of shape. You're always chasing the 17-year-old, but now you're 40, right? The same thing is in training. As you get further away from that 21-year-old recruit, then your life experience is different. We talked about it earlier I think that we're kind of in this transitional period that the trainers of 10 years ago who were very hesitant to use technology. I had trainers that didn't even want to use email, right? Look at you guys now. I mean, I'm going to guess, and we didn't have this conversation, but I'm going to guess that you decided to have a podcast to reach out to younger people in the profession, right? To be able to, because you probably started out with newsletters, right? And then people still read newsletters, right? But you thought, hey, there's got to be another way that we can touch people. And then you came up with this podcast or this live. That's because the youth of today, these younger police officers, they learn in a certain way, right? And as a trainer, you have to be willing to adapt, or you become the dinosaur.
Oh, absolutely. What are some of the challenges with some of your veteran trainers and some of your newer recruits coming in that you see, and how are you maybe fixing some of those challenges to get those trainers to see kind of on the same level as the younger generation?
Well, I think that's probably a universal problem, right? In all professions that, you know, the younger generation, and I'm not so far removed from it, but the younger generation was raised with a tablet or a laptop or a cell phone in their hand. I have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old that can operate a tablet in a way that I couldn't operate it until I was in college. Right? They can flip through that thing so quickly. You know, we laugh whenever we get into a classroom and you have AV problems, right? All you have to do is ask one of the kids that are sitting in there, and they'll come up and they'll fix the computer for you pretty quickly. You know, so I think that comes to an advantage, and we have to figure out in policing how to use technology, how to leverage technology. And I think we're starting to do that, but there's also a disadvantage to it, right? And the disadvantage is this is still a profession of people, right? It's still a profession of talking to people, and you have to be able to have a certain level of communication skills to be able to do this, right? It wasn't long ago that the popular topic was de-escalation, right? And that's kind of moved now to wellness. And in a couple of years, there'll be another kind of hot button topic. But one of the key components to de-escalation is being able to communicate. And what we see with these Gen X or these younger officers is it's very hard to get them sometimes to talk, right? To have a conversation, an unedited conversation, right? A free flowing conversation. Like, it's very easy to them to say, hey, you're going to use a tactical 9. My name's Officer Witt, Louisville Metro Police Department. This is being recorded. The reason I pulled you over because of this. Do you have anything in the car? Do you have your driver's license without reaching for it? Where is it? Where's your, you know, this is very easy. But then once somebody throws a wrench in that and says, hey, I have a gun in the floor, they go, let me see your hands, right? And it's like, man, this guy's just letting you know he has a gun. You don't have to freak out, right? So I think that's probably the biggest hurdle is there's a communication gap between generations. And it's because of technology, which can be a good thing, but it also can be a hindrance.
How are you closing that gap? What are you doing where you're at? What are you seeing as best practices? What's working to close that gap?
Well, it's probably a good thing is that there's people a lot smarter than me that are out there in this field. So 2 things that I'm involved in right now that are kind of looking at this. One of them is the Consortium for the Advancement of Police Supervision, CAPS program. And it's by the John Glenn College at Ohio State. And basically what they're doing is they have supervisors from all over the country that are coming together to look at some of these problems, right? To figure out how to make toolkits, to figure out how to speak to the younger generation, to figure out how to leverage technology. And there's over 60 agencies out there that are involved in that program that have sent a supervisor to kind of tackle some of these. So that's one. The second that we're kind of involved in Louisville is the Tri-City Police Leadership Academy. So the Tri-City Police Leadership Academy is a partnership between Louisville, Knoxville, and Nashville. Which are all about 3 hours from each other. And we all committed to sending 10 of our first line supervisors, sergeants and lieutenants to a training, as well as our professional staff members. And they've got speakers coming from all over the country. And most of them are in these spaces. They're in the leadership space, they're in the decision-making space, they're in the wellness space, or they're in some type of technology space. Because as these leaders are emergent and they're going to be the next leaders of the police agencies, these are the problems that they're going to have to deal with. The group is actually in Knoxville this week for their first week. And they've heard from speakers from all over the country. And they're really going to lead the next generation of law enforcement into horizons beyond what we know.
I love it. So they're not waiting. They're actually going out and making this happen. And I love that. What do you see that we need to do as trainers, as leaders, in order to improve our specific connection with the new police officers, whether it's the academy students or first or second year people, or even the mid-20s somethings that come out on the range and are becoming the new firearms instructors? What can we do to improve our ability to connect with them?
I think you have to look at your curriculum, right? When was the last time that you really took a deep dive into your curriculum and said, who is it for, right? All of us create a class, and the class should be created with in mind that I'm trying to take a person from point A to point B, right? And how do we get there? What's the learning process to be able to get these things to connect? And sometimes what happens, I think, for trainers is they say, well, this is the way I've always taught the class, and people have been pretty successful in the past. And, you know, but the game adapts, right? It changes, right? The same way that we went after criminals 20 years ago, while the crime remains the same, there is new technology out there to be able to go after these people. Training is the same. Todd, you're in the firearm space. We kind of talked about this earlier, right? There are new ways that you can accomplish some of the same things. One of the things that caught my attention earlier is, I mean, I can remember them telling us the penny drill, right? To put a penny on top of your front sight and squeeze the trigger. And if the penny doesn't fall off, then you had a good sight alignment, good sight picture, and good control of muzzle discipline, right? There's got to be a better way to do that now. And I'm sure you know what that is. Surely we're not expecting 20 years after we've been doing this for somebody to still be sitting with that penny and setting it on top of the front sight. But in some ways, you know, we have to look at our curriculum and we have to say, hey, listen, does the student that I'm teaching now, are they still getting from point A to point B in the same way as students 10, 15, 20 years ago? And if they're not, what do I need to change?
Yeah.
So as you guys are looking at that, Louisville is doing something pretty cool right now, not in the firearm space. I'm sure you're doing great things there too, but in the leader development space and the research you're doing. Talk to us a little bit about the initiatives you have going on with research and leader development.
Yeah, so I'm a part of a unit in the training division, the research and strategic advancement unit. And I can speak a little bit about the research, but the brains behind the two are Sergeant Dr. Jenny Hall, who is a police officer. She's a sergeant, but also she has her PhD. And then also Dearest Horde, who similarly is a police officer. And both of them have done great things in their career as law enforcement, but they've gone on to get their degrees. And basically what they're tasked with is looking at these different programs in the department, looking at the different trainings and doing assessments. So an example would be, we recently looked at the way that we taught use of force, right? And police officers in Louisville now, we had a transition in the last 2 years to where they now write their own use of force statement. They used to just tell the supervisor what had happened, but now they have to write down the statement based off of their recollection of events. The supervisor doesn't interview them. We went through some training recently to make sure that they were hitting these key factors, the key Graham factors, in the Graham v. Connor case, severity of crime, the immediacy, the resistance and flight, to make sure that they were really diving into that. And what Sergeant Hall and Officer Horde looked at is they went through all of the statements. They coded every bit of it to see where in the training is the gap, right? Like, are the statements, are they hitting all of those things? 10 years ago, and you guys can speak to this, we probably would have guessed, right? We would have said, hey, the next iteration of this training, we probably need to talk about this. Why? Well, I don't know why. There's really no research there that tells me why. But my best guess is that we need to do this. But now what we have is people in the field, and lucky for us, embedded in the department, that are able to do some research and assessments and say, no, the next iteration is this because here's the evidence, right? It's an evidence-led approach to training. And there are tons of PhDs out there, as well as universities that are getting involved in this. We're fortunate. The second part of that, the strategic advancement portion, is the portion that I'm involved in, which is the Leadership Institute here in Louisville. And what we are attempting to do through Tri-City that I talked about earlier, and some of our other initiatives, is to make sure that as you get on the police department, that you start to get dabbled into leadership training, because leadership is not, it's not rank. right? It's not a position, it's not title. It's really situational. Like as a police officer, you're going to be a leader every day. You're going to be put in a situation that have to act, that have to make a decision. So we have to train these people early on how to make decisions and how to lead. And that's what the Leadership Institute is aimed to do.
Oh, I love it.
Awesome. I had to pull up this email. I read this email I got from Tim Tebow earlier today. It says leaders are built in the off season. The off season is an opportunity to shape our influence before the spotlight moments come. In law enforcement, there's no off season. We're always on, from the brand new first day recruit to the person that's retiring tomorrow. You are a leader. What are some things that we need to do to keep sharpening ourselves and our passing this information on to our recruits, our sergeants, our corporals, the entire staff, to let them know there's no downtime, there's no regrouping, no resetting. We need to keep keeping on this leadership cycle. How do we communicate that to them and see that they're doing that?
I think you have to do more in the controlled environment, right? This is a controlled environment. You guys are recording this as well as it being live. There's an opportunity for this to be shared, for people to listen to this conversation, to build knowledge and capacity through things like this, as well as going to things like ILEETA that are going to spark conversations. They're going to build connections and friendships and mentorships that, if some of these folks are out there and they don't have an answer within their agency, they can reach out to someone that they met at ILEETA or that they've met through these situations, and they can get one of those answers. I think that it's training within the department or post. What does that look like, and continuing to advance yourself? I think it's having leaders that, real time in situations when applicable and they can, that they pull their officer to the side and say, hey, good job. Let's talk about some things that you did well and some things that you can, and look for teachable moments, and telling people that like critique is okay. Accountability is okay. Like these are words that sometimes get a negative content. My chief in Louisville says this a lot, so I'll quote him. Like, if I am holding you accountable, then I'm showing you I care for you, right? If I'm not holding you accountable and I'm letting you continue upon a path that towards destruction, what I've showed you is that one of two things, that I don't care about you, or I don't believe you can get any better, right? And both are equally bad. Right. We all have those people in our life. And usually we joke around and say, hey, if I'm making fun of you or I'm hazing you, it's because I like you. Right. And once I stop doing that, that's a bad sign. So if I'm critiquing you, it's probably because I like you and I expect more from you. I expect more out of you. I'm trying to teach you. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to mentor you. And in turn, I expect you to do the same thing to me. I expect you to hold me accountable as a leader. I expect you to critique me. I expect you to help me learn. And if you don't do that, then we failed each other.
You packed a couple of really cool things in there that I want to pull the thread on just a little bit. Number one is the peer and subordinate role in leadership. I want to underscore some of the things you said in there that is a big piece of that. We hold each other accountable, right? And that there's an element to that goes up as well, bringing truth to power and asking the right questions. Another thing I think I heard you say earlier is, from my understanding, there are 3 promotionally aligned development process. One is select, promote, train. Then there is select, train, promote, and then there's train, select, promote. And it sounds to me as though you are on the train, select, promote. You train them before they're even told or selected to be a sergeant or for promotion. And then that way they're a little bit more prepared. So going back to what Brian said about the, Tebow and the off season thing, there is an off season. There's more of a preseason than an off season, and getting them ready before they're asked. Is that kind of the model you're using there, that get them ready before they're asked to do it?
Yeah, I think that's most important, right? Is like we should always be training. We should always be learning. We could always be put in a situation to lead. And what's the downside of training someone to lead? Likely they're going to lead in their home life. They're going to lead coaching their kids. They're going to lead somewhere. And the downside to teaching them what a supervisor is supposed to do on the police department, what that may mean is that they look at their buddy on the platoon and they go, hey, Sergeant's just doing his job, right? And now there doesn't have to be a supervisor to subordinate conversation, because subordinate to subordinate, we're holding each other accountable, right? And that's that sports team thing, right? Is like, coach shouldn't have to get involved if we're all bought into this, right? Because we care enough about the coach that, you know, we hold each other to a certain standard. And that creates a really high level culture. And Joe, we talked about this the other day. I think there's a huge emphasis right now on mental wellness. And I'm glad there is. But one of the things that I said to you the other day is, show me an organization that has strong, competent leadership that people have bought into, that their people aren't mentally well, right? Typically, the agencies that people aren't mentally well, it's because there's chaos at the top, right? And there's crisis around them all the time. And then that breeds unwell officers. If you take care of, you know, your ship and your house, and you have strong leadership, then likely your people are well too. And if not, then that's why we have the mental wellness programs, to be able to catch those who fall in the cracks.
So I think what you just said there at the very end, I just want to kind of put a highlighter over that real quick, that inevitably there is trauma, there is unseen mental health issues, addictions, all that kind of stuff that people are dealing with. In an environment that is developing leaders and truly cares about their people, and there is psychological safety, those who do need help are more likely to come forward, and the organization itself is not creating the problem, if I heard you correctly in that.
Yeah, no, 100%. Skeet Brewer is the director of state, tribal, and local policing at FLETC. And the way he puts it, I do some teaching at Department of Homeland Security Leadership Academy. The way he puts it is, you can have two things. You can have a wellness program, or you can have a culture of wellness. Those are two separate things, right? There's a lot of people who they check the boxes of a wellness program, and then there's cultures that catch those people who fall through the cracks. Because you're right, inevitably there's going to be trauma, there's going to be PTSD, there's going to be substance abuse, there's going to be divorce, there's going to be personal havoc in people's lives. Like, this is the beast in which we work, right? But when you have a culture of wellness, then the supervisor catches that early on and gets the person the help that they need. They don't just push that person to the wayside and say, hopefully they get better, right? Or maybe I don't want to have that difficult conversation because I don't want to be the bad guy. They feel secure in their position to take care of people, whether or not it's the popular decision or not.
Love it.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic.
Hey, we're right about 10 minutes left, and I want to bring in our instructor development video, and we'll play that from Rob Rose here on storytelling, and then we'll kind of dive into that little topic there and do our wrap up. And man, this 40 minutes just went fast, as always.
Here we go.
Good afternoon. My name is Rob, and I've been in law enforcement since 2000 and a member of ILEETA since 2020. I want to briefly talk to you today about storytelling in relation to instructor development. When you tell a story as an instructor, you have the very unique opportunity to bring a learner into your world for that moment of time, because every instructor knows that facts sell, but stories tell. And storytelling is a very integral part of that development. In this profession, storytelling is not entertainment. It's how we connect lessons to real world impact to be passed on to others. When we tell stories as instructors, we do more than pass on information. We're actually passing on wisdom that creates emotional anchors that helps learners recall the lesson long after the class is over. So by bringing your story to life, you turn storytelling into transformation for shared and similar experiences. Storytelling turns facts into memories. And if you start small, you will see big results and a return on your investment as a trainer. Thank you.
Powerful stuff there from Rob. I've been talking about storytelling for several years, and I think it's incredibly powerful when we use stories in training. We can use it wrong and we can use it right, but sometimes I think we've all been to those classes where instructor stands there for 6 of the 8 hours and just tells war stories, and that's the wrong way to use stories. But Justin, I'm just curious how you there at Louisville, did I say that right? Not Louisville? At Louisville, how you guys incorporate some storytelling in your training?
If it's intentional, right? If it has to be intentional, and it has to be to your point, it's got to be driven to the point of the course. I think it's critical. I think that every bit of science would tell us that even like Kolb would tell us that, you know, having a foundational point, that a concrete experience that you can point to is going to translate to better learning, right? So yeah, I think that when building out, the hardest thing for new instructors is to figure out what the sweet spot of content versus storytelling is. Right? It's you either get an instructor who comes in and they're all content and they're done with the class in 15 minutes, or you get someone who goes 2 hours over because it's all story and you go, what's the point of the class? So I agree 100% that learning how to use a story to teach the content, that's an art. I've seen, I'm not going to like pat him too much, but I will because he's got a better beard than me. I've seen Joe do this a lot in every bit of keynote speech that I've ever seen him do on storytelling and tying it back. And somehow, whether it's the empty plate, Joe, or whatever, you always somehow relate to everyone in the crowd. And that's the trick, right? Is tell a story that everyone can then go, I can relate to that. Right. And instead of alienating people, because I think that's a fear, is telling a story that someone goes, I don't know, it doesn't have anything to do with me.
Yeah.
Well, I'll accept your compliment there, and thank you for pointing that out. But I watched you do one as well, and I think there's this. It was at the FTO conference when you spoke at the dinner, and there's this point where you bring a person in and they're literally sitting right there beside you in this patrol car, and kind of, it's almost like I was sitting in the back seat watching you and a sergeant kind of have this conversation. I think there's a finesse to it that you've got to bring the person there to be there with you. And Rob hit the nail on the head. Start small. People who try to contrive stories and make it fit and like, oh, I've got to tell a story to get this content to work. The reality is, dude, just tell a little bit of story and see if it works and experiment with it. Have fun.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you did a good job of doing some storytelling in the Emerson Hour. And for those that have not seen Justin or any of the Emerson Hours, go to the ILEETA YouTube channel, subscribe to the ILEETA YouTube channel, and watch some of the powerful speeches and talks from the Emerson Hour. But start with Justin's talk. Just go down there and search for Justin, and talks a little bit about baseball. So check it out.
Yeah, you did a great job at Emerson Hour. Just while he brought up Emerson Hour, what was going through your heart, mind, and soul before you got up on in front of that group with the microphone in your hand?
Probably the big thing is I've been coming to ILEETA for several years, and to answer a question Joe had earlier, I've kind of pushed people from our department to come to get outside. I think that what happens is you can become incestuous if you only learn from a certain group of people, right? You can't be a prophet in your own land. You need to hear from other people. I think ILEETA is a great place for that. And I had been coming to ILEETA for some time, and I went to Emerson Hour every time and heard some really great presentations. And really what went through my mind is I was told by Todd Fletcher that I had this amount of time not to have any notes or anything. And the people in front of me were using, and I won't point out throw anything, they were using prompts, like they had a phone or a piece of paper. And in my mind, I was like, man, this is cheating. But I was good. Everyone did a great job. The big thing is that I was honored because I'd seen so many people do the Emerson Hour, and I had sat in that seat thinking, man, I wonder if I could do that. Right. I wonder if, you can speak unprompted for that amount of time, on a topic that really resonates with everyone. And it was weird for us and ours that everyone kind of talked about passion and purpose. So it's funny how that happens. For those of you that don't know, is they don't give you a topic. They just say, hey, listen, whatever speaks to your heart, that's what you're going to talk about for those 9 minutes, which is harder than it looks. But it was a great opportunity. And if you're asked to do it this year, don't say no, right? Challenge yourself to do it because it's a good experience.
And you did a great job. It was a spectacular lineup, and thank you for being a part of that.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity for sure.
Yeah, absolute. Great job. I watched it a couple days ago, and something that resonated with me that I had to kind of look in the mirror and kind of ask myself some questions. You said something, and I'm paraphrasing here. We trade purpose and passion for paycheck and pension, and we betray our younger selves when we got into this career for the passion that we had for this career. Is that kind of about right?
No, that's it. I actually had that conversation with somebody again recently. Towards the end of your career, we start thinking about all the ways that we can pad our numbers, and there's something to that, right? You want to be able to have prosperity in your afterlife of policing, but what are you sacrificing in order to get there, right? And a lot of times we sacrifice our mental health because we don't want to work 20 hours a week of overtime. We don't want to work in these environments, but we're doing it just so we can pad that pension. That was, the crazy thing about that was totally unscripted. I didn't plan to say we train purpose and passion for paycheck and pension. That rolled off the thing, and multiple people have said that to me or texted it to me at some point in time. So no, that was a cool highlight for sure.
Well, that's that being present with the audience thing, and I think that's one of the most pure things of it taught. I've seen everybody on this call do it, is that when you are present with the audience and you get that spark, something just says, go here now. It's so cool to watch. And that's the part that's remembered. I think, a couple of years ago, when I was speaking there and I closed something out, I talked about Mahalia Jackson saying, Martin, tell him about the dream. That wasn't part of his original speech. And that's what's remembered. So just like this, passion for pension, that's awesome, man.
Well, hey, we got just a couple minutes left, and I want to go around the horn. That was my last comment, but Todd, any last comments, thoughts for Justin?
Thanks for being with us, and thanks for sharing some things that you have going on internally there in Louisville. That's very interesting. I think that there's a lot of information that we can unpack and share with other agencies and other trainers that I think is fantastic to see you leading from the front in some of these things, like the developing leaders and mentors and where you're going with training. Instead of waiting for somebody else to do it, you guys are taking the lead on a lot of that. And so fantastic job, and can't wait to see you in March.
Yeah. No, I appreciate the opportunity. I guess I'll leave you guys with, I think we have 10, maybe 12 from Louisville coming to ILEETA. It's our biggest group coming ever. And they're, various areas from hard skills to looking for leadership topics to looking for motivational topics, looking for just a spark, right? So a variety of topics that I'm excited for them to get to. The biggest thing is in leading this with leadership is that, man, listen, like wherever you're at in your agency, be present in that spot, right? I think when people get into roles, eventually they start looking to the next role. What will I do when I'm a sergeant? What will I do when I'm a lieutenant? What will I do? Well, what will you do right now? Right. I have no desire to be a lieutenant. I'm not taking a test. I have no desire to promote. Be present in the spot you're in. See what impact you can make in this spot. And if you live present in this spot, in these shoes, in these decisions, then everything else will work out. So that's my closing.
Love it.
Thank you.
Joe, final thoughts, questions?
All I was going to say was thank you for everything you've done for the organization, for the profession. I've watched you for years, brother. I think you are a phenomenal leader and a great speaker and a tremendously influential person. And for what you, Sergeant Hall, your chief, have done for our organization, the Association of ILEETA, thank you all so much for what you do there as well.
No, I appreciate it, guys. Thanks a bunch.
Justin, thanks a lot. For everybody that's watching this, go back again and grab a pen and notepad and take some notes, because there was a lot of aha moments that I think that you will benefit from and take back to your agency and share that with your agency and have them watch this video. Justin, thanks. Joe, Todd, always a pleasure working with you guys, and we'll see you all next month with who do we have next month? Raul Rivas.
Yep.
And we'll see you guys next month.
See you
Have a
next.
nice day. Bye.